So there was an ad put out, an actual article that was put on the internet today. And the article was called "5 Nations That Imported Europeans to Whiten the Population." Published on March 10th, 2014. Updated on February 23rd, 2019. And according to the African History Network, they wrote an article that said this in response to this article, or I think it's, okay. So in response to this, the 5 nations that imported Europeans to whiten the population, they wrote this, because it's actually a video on YouTube. But they wrote this in response to it. It says, "Did you know that Cuba had a policy to whiten the African population?" This is a very deep article that deals with 5 countries that deliberately brought Europeans into their country to lighten the complexion of the people in many cases. Many of us don't know this aspect of history. After the transatlantic slave trade was officially abolished towards the end of the 19th century, many whites felt threatened and feared free blacks would become a menacing element in society. The elite spent a great deal of time mulling over how best to solve the so-called Negro problem. A popular solution that emerged during this period was the ideology of racial whitening or mixing. Supporters of the whitening ideology believed that if a superior white population was encouraged to mix with an inferior black population, blacks would advance culturally, genetically, or even disappear totally within several generations. Some also believed that an influx of immigrants from Europe would be necessary to successfully carry out the process. Although both ideologies were driven by racism and white supremacy, whitening was in contrast to some countries that opted for segregation rather than miscegenation, something like that, ultimately outlawing the mixing of the races, which is probably what they're eventually going to have to do here in the United States. This, however, was just a different means to the same end, as these nations also imported more Europeans while slaughtering and oppressing the black population. Okay? So, clearly, all this race mixing is an agenda, which is pretty much what we thought that it was, because when I was growing up, in the 70s and the 80s, I don't remember all this. I don't remember all that, all this interracial race promoting at all. It was just a normal society back then, where you saw commercials of that would come on with black men with black women, and white men would be with white women. All of the sitcoms were pretty much people with it were married to and with people within their own racial group. Every once in a blue moon, you would see maybe a sitcom come on television where it would be an interracial couple, but it was rare, okay? So now it's almost every single sitcom that you see has at least one interracial couple, if not two or three. Just about every store you walk in, there's mixed race kids on billboards as models, showing, modeling the clothes or modeling showing something in an ad, promoting something in an ad. Not too long ago, I walked into a mall. I won't name the store, but I walked into this store that I walked into where they were advertising bridal wear. And of course, who was shown? White woman in a bridal gown with a black man in a groom suit. It's like, it is so heavily promoted out here. It's almost in every single commercial, just about, or at least was. I think since Trump's been in office, it's lightened up a little bit. Well, actually, it's lightened up quite a lot. And I don't think Trump has anything to do with that. I think it's because the elites have decided that they need to start creating white babies again. So that's, I think, the only reason why they're starting to subside on all this mind control with black man, white woman everywhere. I mean, it's in commercials, it's in ads, it's on magazine covers, it's on billboards. I mean, everywhere that they can promote ads, commercials, everywhere. It's in movies, television, sitcoms. I mean, just everywhere they could insert it, it's there. And it's just so heavily promoted. It's sickening, okay? And it's kind of shitty, really. It's a real shitty thing to do to black women, because considering the fact that over 50% of our women are not even married, to sit up here and ponder our men off onto these non-black women. First, it started off as white women, then it merged into white Hispanic women, then it kind of merged into Asian, white-skinned Asian women. Okay, so really anyone with white skin, they were promoting all this, doing all this interracial promotions everywhere you go, especially in the malls, just everywhere on ads. Even when I watch television, it's even in some of the medicine commercials where they'll show a married couple, and it's always black man, white woman. 90% of the time, all these interracial ads are always showing white woman, black man, white woman, black man, white woman, black man. Okay, every once in a blue moon, you'll see a white man and a black woman. So I don't know what the agenda is with that. I'm not sure what that part was all about, but because it seems to me like if you're going to promote interracial race mixing to whiten a population, why don't you just promote it so that it's equally fair? Instead of showing just black man, white woman, why don't you show black woman, white man as well? But I think that they did that on purpose to cause tensions between white women and black women. I think that was purposely done. because the United States is sick. There's a lot of things that they do to their population that is very, very sick. Okay. So let's go over some statistics or percentages. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the United States only makes up pretty much 13% of the population of the United States. Okay. And white people make up about 60.5% of the U.S. population. Okay, and then if you include Hispanics, they make up about 74.8% of the population. Okay, and so what in the world would you need to why in the world would you feel that you would need to promote race mixing because you fear that black people, let's go back to that ad. Okay, so supporters of the whitening ideology believed that if a superior white population was encouraged to mix with an inferior population, blacks would advance culturally, genetically, or even disappear totally. Some also believed that an influx of immigrants from Europe would be necessary to successfully carry out the process. Okay, but then let's see. After the transatlantic slave trade was officially abolished towards the end of the 19th century, many white people felt threatened and feared free blacks would become a menacing element in society. Okay, so that's supposedly why they feel that they need to bring about all this race mixing. Okay, now how much of a menace to society can you be if you only make up 13% of the population and white people stand at approximately 75% of the population? That's a very 13% compared to 75% is a very small amount of people. Okay, if we were in a race war, we would lose as black people because we are totally outnumbered. Okay, so it seems to me that there's other ways if you feel like black people are a burden on white society. It seems to me there's other ways you can go about fixing that problem rather than just pondering black males off onto white women. So I don't think that's the only reason why they race mix. I think their need for melanin also has a big part to do with that. Because it seems to me like, as educated as our government and military is, if they really felt that we were all of that much of a threat, there's tons of things that they could do to thin out the black population besides race mixing. Okay, they could put viruses that are geared just for black people. I've heard that they can create viruses that only attack certain races. They have that type of knowledge, amongst many other things. There's also, to me, there's got to be some other reason why, other than black people becoming a menace to society, that you would promote all this race mixing. Because why would you want your daughters to interracially breed with people who you feel are inferior to you? It seems to me like, if I was running this country and that's how I felt, if I was, to me, I would probably try to, if I was in the position to rule this country, instead of race mixing as a way to solve the problem, I think it would have been a much better idea to try to get other countries to accept them, maybe pay these other countries, and then just give black people a reparations so that they'll leave. That's what I would do. And mainly I would be targeting their motherland. If you're willing to leave and go back to Africa, I'll give you an X amount of money. That to me sounds like it would have been a lot more, a much better thing to do, rather than to have your daughters who you feel are superior to breed with a race who is inferior. And so, supposedly, there's some other reason to me, and as to why they are so heavily promoting all this race mixing. It must be that they must need melanin in order to sustain life on this planet. I think that's a big part of it. Because you can't sit here and tell me that they never thought to give black people reparations to go back to Africa. I mean, how many black people would accept that money and go back in a heartbeat? I truly believe over half of them, at least over half of them. If there's and we're talking if there's like 13% of the population makes up the entire population of the black race here in America, that would take the population down to about 7%. Okay, if half of them left, if half of them took the offer and went back to Africa. Now, the other half, if you gave them options to live like places like in the Caribbean, like Costa Rica, places in South America, just anywhere in the world that they wanted to live, you give them reparations and they're gone. So there's some other sinister reason behind it, because the United States can afford to pay black people reparations big time. They have way more than enough money where they could have afforded to pay each of us at least $1 million, or if not $2 million each. They could easily afford that. We're only 13% of the population. They easily could have afforded that. So there's some other sinister reason why they want to keep us here. And I would be very interested to hear from some of you out there. What are your thoughts about why the United States won't just offer African Americans reparations to go back to Africa? If they really wanted us gone, they could have thought of that ages ago. You know what? We'll pay you $1.5 million a piece to go on back to Africa. They could easily afford it. Okay, even $500,000. Okay, black people, a lot of black people would take that money and be gone so fast. Okay, so $500,000, I'm not sure in today's world, though. I think you need at least $1 million, at least, because things are getting so expensive. you want to make sure that they at least have a place to live, and money, save enough money where they can get set up, enough money where they could pay to move and get to the destination, get a house going, and get some food on the table, and at least transportation. So 1.2 million, that sounds like it would be reasonable to me. So there's some other sinister reason behind this, and I think it's because they need melanin. That's truly what I think, because it just doesn't make sense to me why you would have your daughters pondered off onto a race who you feel is inferior. That just doesn't make sense. And this has been going on for generations. They did this in Brazil. They did this in Cuba. They did this in the Dominican Republic, I believe. Any place where colonization took place, they promote race mixing. Okay, and a lot of it, look what happened in Australia. White people, when they went over to Australia and colonized over there and took over the whole country, those people, the Aboriginal Australians, are now down to 3% of them left. Of the Aboriginal Australians, there's only 3% of them left now. So I know full well they took that race mixing tactic over there as well. So this is what they do. If they want your land, they'll colonize over onto your land, use their women as a weapon of control by promoting a bunch of race mixing, which a lot of their women have no problem doing, because a lot of their women are not attracted to white men. It's very obvious. A lot of white women are not attracted to their own men because they have no problem race mixing. Anywhere they go, they have no problems with it. They will voluntarily do it. There's so much race mixing here in the United States, it's unbelievable. At the more than willing white women that are willing to get into relationships with black men, it is unbelievable. Okay, and it's very obvious. White women will get with just about any man who's got melanin in his skin over her own men. They have always been like that. And I think white men are a lot more reluctant because they're the ones that maintain the white supremacy. So they're not as likely to engage in all that race mixing. They would rather white women do it because, for one, it's a lot easier for white women to get into interracial relationships over white men, because white men, a lot of women of color are not attracted to white guys. And when I say women of color, I'm talking about any woman who's got brown skin. Most of them are not typically attracted to white guys on average. The majority of them aren't. They would rather date a man from their own community or a colored man from a different community over a white guy. Most of them. So that's pretty sad when your own women are not even attracted to you, where you can use your women as a weapon and be sure that it's going to happen because they're not even attracted to their own men. But yeah, 5 nations that imported Europeans to whiten the population. That's an actual video on YouTube. I will try to post the video up in the description box so that you guys can see it. But to me, I would rather take reparations and choose where I want to live. If the United States offered me, a white man, or $500,000 to get out of here, or $1.5 million, whatever. If they offered me reparations, would I take reparations or a white guy? I would take the reparations and go. Okay, I'd have been gone years ago. If that was offered to me, I'd have been gone. Okay, and I had thought years ago. I had thought about moving to Africa. I had thought about moving to South Africa because South Africa has a colored community over there. So I kind of thought, years ago, I had thought about going to South Africa and setting up, shop over there and just living there, because if I'm going to go somewhere, I would want to live around people who kind of look more like me, or somewhere like Costa Rica might work, or maybe South America somewhere, perhaps. It just depends, somewhere like Guyana or something like that, or maybe even Brazil, somewhere where there's more of a mixed population, because I'm mixed raced, and so I would prefer to live in a mixed race, environment. And so rather than getting with a white guy. Now, if he was extremely handsome and, made six figures, I might do it. If he would have to be very nice looking. And there are some very nice looking white guys, but the probability of them getting into an interracial relationship are not very high. Okay. What I've noticed is, to me, the white guys that I'm more attracted to, they have more Nordic features. I'm more attracted to, and I think that might have something to do with the bloodline that runs through my veins. Okay. Because I am part Danish. So that might have something to do with that. But I am more attracted to guys with Nordic features. Okay. We're talking platinum blonde hair, nice blue eyes, and slender physiques, slender physical features. I don't like guys that are built like they're these big boned Sasquatch men that we got running around. We got a lot of those over here in America. And I think the diet has a lot to do with that, more than anything. But let's see. There's a lot of guys over here that look just like Sasquatch. They're tall, big boned. They're not attractive. I like the tall, more slender physiques, and not too tall. I would say probably 5'9", 5'8", the tallest, not too tall if I'm going to breed with them. So, yeah. But anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I think, a lot of African Americans would have rather preferred to take the reparations and just get out of here. So, see, there's better ways to do things rather than plundering off all of our men off onto our oppressors. That's not wise to me, because that causes tensions between white women and black women, because a lot of them do not like each other, and black men have a lot to do with that. Black men have developed this ego, a very, very conceited type of ego, where they kind of feel like they can have anybody and So their attitude is, when you're seeing your image up everywhere, all over the United States, being promoted with white people who are supposed to be, who are seen as supreme in this country, that's going to give you some type of an ego. Yeah, I'm sure it does. And it's gotten so, black men have become so egotistic because of it that they are not even valuable anymore, because they're so conceited now, because they know that they're being promoted all over the world, really, but especially here in the United States, they're being heavily promoted to race mix, and while black women are just kind of ignored and shown in ads as being by ourselves, that's a really, really shitty thing to do to somebody. That is really, really shitty. Imagine if you're not black, if you're not black and if you're a female, imagine going through something like that, where all your sons are pondered off onto your enemies and images of you are shown by yourself. I mean, the United States is something else. If I could choose a place to live, it would not be here. I would probably go somewhere else if I had enough money. I'd have been gone years ago, because the United States, on a psychological level, living here, it is a good country to live in, but the price you have to pay to live here on a psychological level, especially if you're black, is, to me, is not really worth it. When I could go somewhere with reparations and live out a much more peaceful life, I would rather take the reparations and go, rather than to be in a country where my sons are being promoted to marry their oppressors. My daughters chances are they're not going to get married at all. And then, they're going to have to fend on their own. And the United States is a very, very expensive place to live. So they're either going to have to be very, very smart, or they're going to have to settle for men that white women don't want. And that would be a bunch of men coming out of prison, and men that just can't really get their shit together. That's really the only thing that's available in the black community. So it's either them, you're either going to have to marry men that have been in prison, or you're going to have to marry outside your race. And a lot of black women are not attracted to white guys. They're just not. They're more attracted to men of color. That's just how it is. So would I take the reparations and go? Oh yeah, I'd have been gone. I'd have been gone. And I think the United States, rather than trying to breed us out with our enemies, I think it would have been more of a better thing to do would be to just give them reparations and tell them, I'll give you reparations if you leave the country. Okay? And that way, there's no race mixing. There's no, more than half of black people would have been left. They would have took that money and been gone. This gives them the option to marry someone who they want to marry without being brainwashed into marrying your oppressor. That they could take, black men could either take that money, go back to Africa and marry a decent African woman, or marry an African American woman, or go somewhere and marry whoever, but they don't have a history of enslaving your people. To me, that seems like a much better option. Go ahead and leave your comments in the comment section, and I'll talk to you guys later in another video. Thanks so much for listening. Peace out.